Mm. Ah, hey there, Audit and Fraud, friends and family. Listen, I've got a question for you all. Have you ever gone out to a place, restaurant, car lot, wherever, to purchase something, but the person that you were dealing with just seemed kind of shady? Really want to trust them? Did they ever have that look that made you not really want to trust them? Let me know, because today we're going to talk about a tale where, should you trust the person who's providing you some service? And how do you know if they are not trustworthy? All right, so buckle your seatbelts, you guys, because this one is interesting. Are you ready? Let's go.
Welcome to the Friday Fraudster podcast. Join them as they discuss sad, funny, and sometimes disturbing fraud stories. Be sure to catch past episodes on your favorite podcasting platform or go to www.fridayfraudster.com.
All right, friends, you heard the question that I asked. Have you ever gone to a place and the person that was serving you just seemed kind of shady, just a little bit off? Like maybe you didn't really want to trust them. If so, it's happened to me, and I've got a story for you. But before I tell you my story, let's bring up today's co-host.
Hello, hello.
Hello, everyone.
Thomas. Christine.
Yes.
Have you all ever been out somewhere and you just felt like you couldn't trust the person that was serving you?
I'll let Christine go first.
No. I mean, and I've been to some sketchy gas stations, but no. I guess I never. Maybe, okay. So maybe for me, it's like, oh, if they steal my debit card, I'm just going to cancel and get a new one. But there's never been anybody really shady, I think I've ever pinged in my head. What about you?
The main thing I think of is like car repair, mostly because I just picked up my van from having a car repair. But that's more like the shop itself, not necessarily the individual. Although there was one local that I used to go to all the time, more often than I wanted to. And come to find out, one of the guys at the front counter was constantly adding things to the quotes and such to try to drive up the money coming in. He got fired because of it. But yeah, so that one felt shady. That one just didn't feel right. And I feel bad that they lost a lot of customers, including me, because of one guy. But you don't know if it's one person or an entire shop. But yeah, that's the first thing that comes to my mind for me.
Yep. So it's happened to me twice when I've got that sinking, suspicious feeling. Now, one time, I think it was 2018, 2019-ish, I was in New Orleans and I was in this restaurant. It's a really good restaurant. Close to Bourbon Street. And I was in there, and while in there, close to the end, the server came over and he said, "You look familiar." And I'm like, okay. I'm pretty sure I don't know you. So then he said, "You grew up in New Orleans, didn't you?" No, I didn't. He said, "Yeah, you look familiar." And it wasn't one of those, "Hey, you look familiar. I hadn't seen you in a long time," with a smile. It was one of those smirks. And so I'm thinking, oh God, I don't even want to give this man my credit card. And then he said, he asked me, he said, "You're rich, aren't you?" And I'm like, no, I guess maybe he thought I was a YouTuber or something. So I was like, dude, you really got the wrong person. Now, it didn't help my case that I had like a Amex Gold or something like that. I mean, it was just a credit card. It didn't mean I had any kind of money, right? So I hand him my credit card. He charges it. He comes back and he says, that's a nice card. And I was like, wow, that is strange. And sure enough, about a week later, some interesting charges were on my credit card around the New Orleans Metairie area. If you're familiar with the area, some cities right outside of New Orleans. I know exactly where it happened and where it came from. Now, the next time or the first time it happened to me, I was in Spain. I was either in Madrid or Barcelona. You made me think about this, Christine, when you just told us the story before we came on. And I know exactly where it happened too. I remember while there, we hadn't tried any American food. And so we saw a Hard Rock Cafe and I was like, I want to try some American food. By the way, if you're ever in another country, just don't eat American food because it is the worst thing ever. Just stick to whatever they have. I mean, whatever. But anyway, so we go into this Hard Rock and the server kept asking us a lot of questions. Now, you guys have heard me say, I can understand Spanish sometimes, but I can't speak it. The people that I was with, they were fluent. And so the server kept looking at me specifically because obviously I was the foreigner. And she said some things that kind of made my ears perk up. And so paid for it, credit card, obviously, and left. The next thing you know, I get home and I get a call from my credit card company. They're like, hey, are you still in Spain? No. They said, well, there's some charges that have appeared on your account. Did you make charges at? And they started naming off these places. And I'm like, no, that's not me. I'm obviously still not there. There was a charge that morning. Obviously, I'm not there. I'm here in the US. And I know for a fact it had to have come from that Hard Rock Cafe. So I guess I'm wondering, anybody ever got like this weird kind of tingle that something just wasn't right when you were interacting with someone in a service-related capacity? Is it just me? Am I the only one? I'm the only one? Oh, man.
No, I mean, I think I'm intuitive. Like when I have a gut feeling, I acknowledge it. I just was never, but we live in two totally different areas. I always tell people I live in a bubble.
Yeah.
We live in a Pleasantville bubble. There's not a whole lot that goes on here. So
sometimes I wish I lived in a bubble.
no, you don't. I mean, it's nice. I got kids. I like if they were walking to home from the park at 8:00 at night, I'm not worried.
Yeah, that's one thing with me too. Like I live in the Woodlands, which is just north of Houston, and we call it the Woodlands bubble. It's a more affluent area. The crime is less. Yeah, my son when he was 13 years old could ride his bike to the mall, and we weren't worried about it. It's definitely, it depends on where the area is. And so it's easy to forget what the real world really is because of that bubble you're in. Absolutely.
You have blind trust in everything you do. Ignorance is bliss sometimes.
Yep.
Yeah,
Rob,
you know what?
We get going on the story or anything like that, I want to interrupt for a minute because I think we need to get a little bit of audience participation, especially to see if anybody in the greater Houston area is paying attention to the show today. So Rob and I are going to be at the Houston conference, and he has no idea I'm doing this. So Rob and I are going to be in the Houston conference on Monday, the IIA conference. If anyone watching the show, actually between now and Monday, anybody watching the replay, if you're watching this, stop by the booth and tell us that you were watching the show, you're fans of Friday Fraudster, and we're having some giveaways. And you will get an extra 5 entries into the giveaways that we have going on. So just make sure you bring it up on Monday. It's going to be a great event, and you cannot miss our booth. It's going to be 2 massive booths combined into one for the main entrance. So definitely come by and say hi.
Okay, so wait though. Now you can't leave everybody on this cliffhanger because what are some of the prizes in the giveaway?
What are some of the prizes? All right. Well, I think the best one is that you get a month of Starbucks coffee for free.
Ooh.
But you also can you can win a month, or not a month, I'm sorry, a year of audit leverage, right? You can also, the grand prize is you can get IA Stream, our internal audit platform, for free for 1 year for one grand prize. And then if you really want to, I think you're going to have a couple of books you're giving away. I might have a coffee mug or two that I'm going to give away as well. But yeah, I think the best one is the Starbucks coffee for a month.
Yeah, I think that's probably worth some people driving down from Dallas just to come to the Oh, so you heard it here first, people. If you are in the if you are in the Houston area,
Christine just jumped in her car to drive down here.
she did. If you are in the Houston area and you're coming to the Houston IA conference on Monday, which probably has about over 1,000 auditors registered right now.
Yeah, 1,104. Now we're saying Monday. It's Monday, April 7th, 2025. For anybody that's listening, future days.
There you go. Now that's a pretty big event though. 1,100 auditors. That's pretty big. I guess she decided not to come to Houston to get that free Starbucks. She's changed her mind.
Yeah, Christine, we thought you jumped in the car and started driving down to Texas.
No, my computer froze.
Okay, so look.
It would be rigged. If I won, they would all say it was rigged.
So at this point, it looks like I'm the only one who has gotten that tingly feeling dealing with somebody in a customer service capacity.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it's all fun and games until $10,000 comes missing from your account. In today's story, we're talking about a bank teller, but not just any bank teller. This bank teller fleeced funds from several account holders, but in a very interesting way. So, for example, with the first victim, and this is all alleged at this point. Actually, he pled guilty, I think. So with the first victim, he took $10,000 cash from the victim's account using a co-conspirator that worked in the bank. They falsified documents essentially to withdraw money from the person's bank account. Now, this individual and the same co-conspirator did this 2 more times from victim one's account, totaling about $20,000 in all. What do you guys think about that?
I'll let Thomas go first because this is my wheelhouse.
As I'm reading through this, I'm like, yeah, you've got to be just pointing out, like, in your mind, all of the things that are wrong, that had to go wrong for all of this to play out, right? You would hope, you would think that people you interact with at the bank are going to be, upstanding citizens. It's almost like a police officer or someone like that as well, right? You expect that you hold them to a higher standard is what you do. And so the fact that this teller was doing that, that's very disappointing, very sad. Christine, I'll shut up and let you point out every little thing here that this bank is obviously not doing right.
So this is a hard one because, like you said, Thomas, it's trust. It really is. Trust is not a control. There are only so many controls we can have in place that reduce our risk and are yet still cost effective for operations. Based on what I'm seeing and how I'm thinking about this, because now I sit here and read these stories and I'm going, okay, what can we do here? What can other financial institutions do for this? Like, why wasn't this found earlier? And maybe Rob needs to kind of go through the rest of the story, but I don't know what else the bank could have done. And I think the timeline would help support kind of like what I'm saying.
So I did notice, talking about the timeline, it was only, not even 2 full months that this went on. It was October and November. So yeah, Yes, they shouldn't be able to do it, but I'm thankful it was 2 months and not 2 years.
Correct. So that's why there's a part of me that's thinking the bank had to have had some side of oversight control. The only other thought that I had for it to come into light outside of that is if one of the victims came up and said, hey, this money is missing. And once they dug around in it is how it was found out.
Yeah.
See, and that's what I think happened, because I don't think the bank had controls. So let's walk through a few things. October 21st, 2022, that's when they took $10,000 from the first victim's account. So you had the bank teller and a co-conspirator. Now, I don't know this for certain, but based on the way the story has been written, I'm guessing that the first teller had the other teller sign a withdrawal slip, because they did say that in one of the instances that that's what happened. So one teller had the co-conspirator sign a withdrawal slip and pretended like he was that person. So I'm assuming the bank was open and he had this guy come to his teller window. He approved the transaction as normal, had this person pretend to be the person. So now on October 22nd, that's when they did it again to the same victim. The second and third victims happened on October the 25th. So they withdrew $10,000 from victim two's account without their knowledge. And then later on that same day, the teller and the same co-conspirator withdrew another $10,000 from victim three's account. Then between October 22nd and December 6th, he deposited a total of $30,200 into his personal account at different financial institutions. And so all in all, they were able to get $255,000 from, was it 5 individuals, I think, 4 of whom were over the age of 80. So what I'm guessing happened is the elderly individuals either started reconciling their bank statements, or one of their children or family members started reconciling the bank statements and said, hey, we've got $10,000 missing here. We didn't authorize this. This is a lot of money. Where did it come from? They then notified the bank. The bank then did an investigation, and that's how it was found out. I don't think the bank's internal controls actually found this at all.
Well, and I guess that is my question is, what additional controls could they have put in place? Because there's never 2 tellers doing transactions when you go in to take cash out.
Yeah, I don't think.
Well, and I'm looking at it too, like reporting fraud sort of thing. So maybe if they had like some sort of a fraud software that would sit here and say, this is not a normal thing. But then I sit here and look at it this way. Number one, we don't know the bank name. We don't know the bank's asset size. And I know that sounds really stupid. That does make a difference in their capabilities of utilizing IT to prevent this sort of stuff, because this stuff is not cheap software.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I think there's only 2 things that would have caught this. Somebody looking at the statements, which is what I'm guessing happened, or like you said, data analytics software that would have flagged this as an anomalous transaction. You know, this person doesn't normally withdraw this much money. And then to have it done twice within a week's period of time for the first victim, that would have flagged it. But that software is definitely expensive. But the thing with fraud, though, when 2 or more people conspire and collude, it makes it more difficult to catch it.
I mean, my only other thing that I'm kind of sitting here and thinking is, could somebody internally have been alerted? I think it would have been, because of it being for the 2 months. That's a lot of cash for one branch to go through if they're not used to having that type of cash withdrawals.
True.
And I know some people are like, well, if they were doing it like here and there or 2 or 3 every single week, eventually that would catch up. As part of, I would hope, if they had correct oversight by branch operations, they would start to notice that uptick in the cash ordering. But it also makes me wonder, did he order the cash too? Because if you're taking $50,000-$60,000 out of your vault every 2 weeks, that's not normally requested, somebody's going to notice that increase in shipment order. And this is all speculation. I don't understand. I don't know what they do. I don't know how often. It's speculation.
Yeah, you make a good point though, but here I am being nitpicky now because when I read the article, it said that the first withdrawal was $10,000 in cash, but it did not say that the others were actually cash. It just said unauthorized withdrawals. So leaving us wide open, we can assume that they were cash as well, which they may have been. I think I'm reading this right because it does say that the first one. Let's see, for the very first one, it said a $10,000 cash withdrawal from the victim's account. Then when it talks about the others, it just said they conducted 2 more unauthorized withdrawals, but they didn't necessarily say that those were cash. So to your
Yeah,
point, if it was all cash,
so if I remember right, I think Kelly would normally bring this up in the past. What did he plead guilty to? Bank fraud and aggravated identity theft. There's no wire fraud involved here. So if it wasn't cash, they'd be hitting it with wire fraud. So I think it was cash.
I didn't catch that.
There you go. That's where I was going with it.
Okay.
What gets me, so
Yep.
it does say that he deposited $30,000 into his personal account at another financial institute. So it doesn't sound like he was stupid enough to deposit it into his own account. So if they had any kind of controls in place to detect that, they wouldn't have it. But if you're being charged with stealing directly or indirectly up to $255,000, and he only deposited $30,000, what in the world happened to the other $225,000 is what I'm curious about.
That was the other question I had.
But I'm guessing he probably had to pay the co-conspirators.
Yeah, but would you pay them that much? You know, like that's not even that would be more than a third. There were 3 people, right? Him and 2 co-conspirators. That's not even splitting it 3 ways.
And they couldn't do it without him.
Yeah.
Correct.
So I would have taken the lion's share of it if it were me, right? If they couldn't do it without me.
So to the audience, whenever you're negotiating terms to do fraud, make sure you get your proportional rate, okay?
Right.
And I don't like, oh my God, I would love to just go to that bank and ask them questions. I want to see the documents. I want to see all of that stuff. Cause I mean, yeah, it's a lot of money though. That's a lot. I did read one article, about this that somebody did ask, like, but why not name the bank? So that's going to be one of it. Cause I know people are probably like, how do you not know the bank's name? This is a very touchy subject, whether it's a robbery, fraud. You have what reputational risk, right? The other thing you need to worry about is financial institution losing money doesn't look good. There's going to be a run on deposits. Bank can go upside down. I mean, we know that insurance is probably going to pay for this as long as they have the appropriate bond coverage. So they should be good. Nobody should lose money, although it is an insurance thing. So if people are wondering, that's usually one of the reasons why something like this could be detrimental. And if you heard that your financial institution had an employee that did this, I'm pretty sure you'd probably be pulling your accounts real fast.
Yeah.
So that's probably why they don't mention it.
So Carol is here, and Carol says, depending on the transaction type, whoever is monitoring their monetary instrument reporting, that's right, should have seen the anomaly in smaller institutions, unless they are also the ones reviewing the reporting. Yeah, I still can't wrap my head around the cash.
So,
where did it go?
Well, but here's the thing. Your monetary instrument log is only going to retain anybody that brings in cash between 3 and 10 that uses to purchase a cashier's check.
Cashier's check.
I think what they were talking about was a currency transaction report that actually hits that. I don't know how many transactions were over 10,000. So that would be the only time that it would hit the report, right?
Yeah, they said at least 26 unauthorized cash withdrawals. So 26, it was 255,000. That averages less than 10,000 per transaction.
So you're not going to have your CTR sort of a thing. That's why I'm sitting here in my head, I'm going, what type of report could you create that would show you tellers with excessive cash withdrawals? And what are you going to consider excessive? Because large cash, because I noticed that for our like CTR reporting, it's not the same number of CTRs that we report every single month. Because there's some months we might do 25. There's some months we might do 60. I don't know. It's all on the whim of the consumer and when they need that excess cash. So no, I was thinking along that same lines, like what type of automated reporting do we already have that would have done it? And I couldn't think of anything.
Okay, so how about this then? So I deal more in like oil and gas and such. So whenever you have a limit for purchasing, then what we'll do is, yes, we'll test to see, if the $10,000 was a purchase limit, if you obviously you test purchases over that to say, okay, where's it properly approved? But another thing you do is test right at that limit or like right below. And is there an unusual amount of transactions that are right at that limit where people are, you're supposed to buy 2 items that's going to be over the amount. So you split it into 2 different purchase orders and now both of them are under the limit and you can get it approved type of thing. Mm-hmm. So I wonder if there's a report they could have ran that just said, hey, is there any kind of just weird activity that's right at that limit? Because if he knew it was 10,000, that's what he's doing, is he's keeping under that limit for red flags.
I mean, we could. It would be a manual. It would be a manual review. So it would be taking reporting and kind of doing, and there's little add-ons you can do in Excel to help you with your data analytics on that. And it's not very expensive. But I don't think we have anything automated enough that would ingest that. And then it's also like, what would your look back period be? We were lucky on that. They were lucky on this one. Like you said, it was 2 months.
Yeah.
But what if this amount was being done over 3 years? Would it have had the same result? Because if your look back period's only 30 days or 60 days, that's the other thing that kind of stinks about some of these things is, did he know that?
Yeah.
So one thing I always tell in our fraud department and everything else is we don't tell anybody what our look back periods are. We don't tell them any of our parameters. That is an us thing. Nobody else in our institution needs to know those things because it's just something that's not necessary for them to complete their job.
Well, and I know external auditors will rarely tell you what the materiality limit is for their audits. And that's exactly why too, right? So that way anybody that wants to do fraud or do something, they know what level to avoid. Yeah, right. That makes sense.
I need to hop off. I'm sorry I'm missing the rest. Everybody enjoy their weekend. And thank you for having me on.
It all goes downhill from here, you all.
See you later.
Bye, Christine.
Okay, so I lost my complete train of thought. Because this one just really had me baffled. Okay, I know where I was going with it. So now there's a common theme here where we see the elderly being taken advantage of, and no one likes to see that. So I'm thinking like for our elderly friends and family, I'm trying to actually do this now, but we've got to freeze their bank accounts. Like if they have savings accounts or investment accounts, we've got to have those accounts frozen to where no withdrawals or deposits can be made without prior approval, and maybe have them a nice little checking account for spending and then just transfer money into that checking account periodically. Because I think the scammers are out and they're out to take advantage specifically of the elderly, the old scams of, hey, your grandson is hurt. Timmy fell down a well, right? Those scams are still here, and the elderly still seem to be falling for them. And now apparently they're colluding at the banks. So, but I think Christine also made a good point about why they didn't want to name the bank, because I mean, realistically, if you saw that your bank was doing this, would you want to go back to that bank?
Yeah, that was a great point. And one thing we teach in the SOX world is an internal control does not prevent collusion, and that's just the hard facts, right? So this is definitely collusion. That makes it much more difficult to prevent and to identify. I agree with you that it seems like they didn't have at least preventative controls, but since it only happened for about 2 months or so, that tells me there was yes, it could have been one of the victims. Hopefully one of the victims did notice, but it also could have been a detective control that it just took a little while for them to test or review also.
I tell you what, if a victim didn't notice $20,000 coming out of their account, then either they are mighty, mighty rich or mighty unaware of their financial affairs.
And anytime I'm advising small businesses on just very simple fraud prevention and internal controls, private business, you're talking a handful of people in the company. The very first thing you should do every morning is pull up your bank app on your phone and look for unusual transactions, right? So as day-to-day people, this is something we can do to prevent fraud for our own selves. And yeah, if we have a family member or something that we're responsible for, doing the same thing, checking their bank account, every once in a while. I've got, family that are up in age, and I know that they have a good amount of money in the bank. They also have a lot of medical expenses. And so, there's a lot of transactions going on there. But I also know that there's a family member that is keeping an eye on that to make sure money going out is legitimate transactions. And that's what we have to do. Because, yeah, you're right. There are so many that will try to take advantage of those situations.
For sure. And so after all of this is said and done, they withdrew money from customer accounts, gained customers' trust, deposited the money into their own personal accounts. We're still trying to figure out where what about $220,000 went, but okay, 210,000, whatever that number is. Accountants can't add. The former bank teller pleaded guilty to $255,000 in a fraud scheme. So,
I mean, I'm so glad that he pleaded guilty, because if you think about it, they have him on video. They probably have some of the signatures. They have so much evidence against him that it would be. I mean, it was already a stupid scheme anyway. I mean, how long do you think you can go, do that and not get caught? And obviously, it was escalating, hitting 255,000 in such a short period of time. What's your end game, right? You're like, when are they going to disappear? What are they planning there? But yeah, I'm glad that they pled guilty to make the entire legal system more efficient in that case. What do you think what do you think the penalty is going to be? What do you think it's going to get?
Oh, I'm gonna guess like maybe around 10 years.
You think that much? You have bank fraud, you have aggravated identity theft.
But
aggravated identity theft in connection with a scheme to steal funds from bank customers. I guess whenever you say bank fraud and bank customers, that does escalate it, doesn't it?
But here's the other layer that they didn't say, but will probably be added on. It's elder abuse. It's a crime against the elderly. Some jurisdictions take that very seriously. So I think that might be the added thing that puts on a little bit more time, because that's pretty serious, man. You got to be pretty scummy to take advantage of the elderly. I think, in our society, I know we've gone down this hill of humanity that hopefully will come back up, but I still think most of us would still protect the young and the old. The rest of us in the middle have to fend for ourselves. But I think most people will try to protect the child if you see a child, and will try to protect the elderly if you see the elderly. I hope the world isn't so bad to where we wouldn't still do that. And then Kay says a great way to protect an elder person is to have a trusted family member be the required co-signer on the account, requiring both signatures to have money come out of the account until such time the person's power of attorney is enacted. Yep.
I am glad that the fraud happened with the teller and then co-conspirators, and it was not defrauding the elderly to come in and sign some of this paperwork themselves, right? Because that's much harder to go after from a legal standpoint, because technically they were signing away, they were authorizing it. So at least you don't have that wrinkle in this process. I do wonder, since he pled guilty, I wonder if doing pleading guilty might have dropped off the elder abuse side.
Yeah, that's possible. Yeah. That's just that's wild, and that's a lot of money in a short period of time. And considering there were only 5 victims and 4 of them were over the age of 80, um, mm, over the age of 80. So imagine if there was somebody whose life savings has now disappeared. So
Yeah. No.
I don't know.
I'm
I'm gonna have to
looking.
follow.
The population of this town that it was in is 24,000 people. It's a tiny little town that they were part of. Interesting. Of course, I say that it's right outside. Looks like Washington D.C. So maybe it's a small town right there, but it's part of a larger community. But still, that's sad.
Gotcha. And so Kay, this is what I was getting at. Kay said vulnerable adult cases can be escalated from a state fraud case to a federal fraud case, pressing heavier charges and restitutions. Yeah. See that's what I'm looking for to happen with this one. But
something tells me if the defendant here tried to fight the charges, I'm confident it would have gotten escalated all the way up to that federal case. But I have a feeling that he pled guilty with an understanding that it wasn't going to go farther than that. That's what and that's complete guess, right? We don't have any more information than this, but that's what I would guess.
Yeah, that's still a good guess, though. That's probably the case. All right, so if you just joined us today, what we're talking about is a case where a bank teller stole money out of the accounts of 5 different individuals. 4 of those individuals were over the age of 80. So if you have parents or grandparents that are getting up in age, call them today, call them tomorrow, call them often, try to talk to them, engage with them. Because the only reason these fraudsters are able to do a lot of these schemes is that the elderly need somebody to talk to, and they talk to these fraudsters and give them information that they don't need. Now, in this case, it was a little different because these individuals, this teller, used co-conspirators to steal directly from the elderly people's bank accounts, which leads me to believe either the elderly people had come into the bank at some point in time, which made them a mark, or they were just scanning through accounts, trying to see those who had balances and then looking at the ages of the person as well. Either way.
You know that they walked in there and they had a 30-minute long conversation with the teller every time they went in there. We know what the situation was there. And so they learned that they're living on their own. They have a lot of money in their accounts and they don't have anybody taking care of them. Therefore, their bank account's not being watched closely. I can almost guarantee you that was the situation that was playing out. But yes, keep in touch with the loved ones, the older ones. Call your grandmama and tell her that you love her. All right, just go ahead and do that. We know that's the right thing to do anyway.
Yep. Yeah. Because grandmas are great.
Yes, they are.
All right. So anything else for this episode, Thomas?
No, I think we just about covered it. It's a sad case, but it's pretty cut and dry as far as what happened. It's I'm glad it was caught quickly. I mean, I could only imagine how quick it would have escalated if they would have waited any longer. But sad stuff.
All right. So, my friends, next week, I'll probably have to run a rerun because I will be somewhere. I'm traveling and I can't remember where. Blah, blah, blah. Where? So, next week, we'll have a repeat. And then we'll be back the week after. And then who is this? This has got to be Kay. Kay says, don't just talk to your elderly family members, but keep them educated on what is happening to keep them informed. And even play out situations or conversations to help them learn and how to respond or handle the situations. That's a very good idea. I used to tell my grandmother, just say, no, I've got to talk to somebody else. Just say no to everything. Just no. And then
unless it's you asking for money, then it's a yes.
Yeah. Well, yeah, right. You still have a 30-minute conversation with them anyway. So I don't know. But yeah. All right. So thank you for joining us on this episode of the Friday Fraudster, episode number 176. That's a whole lot of episodes. If you like this, tell your friends they can join us here every Friday where we talk fraud. And we'll see you maybe not next week. We'll see you next time